So the draft is soon, and it's starting to shape out how the draft is gonna go. But I just wanted to talk about what is gonna happen, how is the draft gonna go, how is it shaping out for the teams which are drafting, and what potentially may happen with these picks. First, let's talk about the number one overall pick, who's 90%, 99% chance that he's going to be the number one pick, is Victor Wembanyama. He plays for the Metropolitans 92 in France. He's been phenomenal in their playoffs, and even though he gets guarded like he's Curry, and honestly, he's just been phenomenal when it comes to building up hype and like being consistent enough. But really, none of that matters, right? Like, the people could say whatever they want about him, but he's getting drafted first overall. There's a 90% chance that he does. The Spurs are ready as they have the number one overall pick, and honestly, he's like a 7'4", 7'5" Kevin Durant. In my opinion, there's not much that needs to be said which hasn't been said. But since I haven't touched on him in this channel, what I want to say about him is that he's really good, right? Like, he's phenomenal. And he's been such a good player, right? And he's such a force where it's like when Yao Ming was coming into the league, or when Shaq was coming into the league, or like when LeBron was coming into the league. It's like these generational prospects which people looked at, right? Or like Anthony Davis and Tim Duncan. It's like these prospects which people look at and they go, wow, this guy's going to be awesome, right? Like, most of these guys had something. You see, with Anthony Davis, it was the shot blocking. With Tim Duncan, it was overall the dominance and the poise in his game. With LeBron, it was the freak athleticism and the mentality that he had, where like people could observe that he was a good passer and that he had a lot of skills and that he could take on the challenge of being the best player in the world, right? Like, he could be a phenomenal superstar and be crowned as one. Like, when LeBron was 18, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. But with a guy like Yao Ming, it was the size, it was the patience, it was the midi, it was the fact that he could actually score and he was a great shot blocker. And with all these guys, and with Shaq, obviously, with the dominance, the body, the strength, the speed. So with all these like top tier NBA prospects, which just came into the league, which had some type of advantage in terms of their body, right? Like jumping high, running fast, just being extremely tall, being extremely strong for your age. We've seen that these guys, even though yes, they get drafted number one, it's hard for them to fail, right? Like, even if it's like Yao Ming, where you just give some good years and then you can't anymore due to injuries, it's hard for these guys to not be the number one overall picks, because it's like they're made for the NBA. And with Victor, it's been the same thing. He's 7'5", he can actually dribble, and recently he's been getting trained in France, and now he's trying to build muscle and find an equilibrium in his body that works for the NBA, so he's not the next Chet Holmgren. And by the way, so he's really the guy this draft. He's been, and Victor Wembanyama will continue to be, the best player which we've seen in this draft, and one of the best prospects of all time when it comes to purely what we can expect from him and how much hype has built around him at such a young age, with such poised skills and with such consistency when it comes to playing well, showing the right face to the media, and being able to be so complete as a player. Second overall, by the way, I'm only going over the top 5 draft picks. I don't want to go through the entire draft. I feel like first I will take too long, and second, I am not a huge watcher of prospects. I know the big ones, but I do not get that involved, you know. And second, we have Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller. I'm gonna go with Scoot. He's basically like a fast Derrick Rose, right? Westbrook type of point guard where he's just been phenomenal. And I mean, I don't know why the Hornets would draft him. They already have a guard, maybe just to create a backcourt duo, you know, just like create like LaMelo and Scoot, you know, like put Scoot at the shooting guard and just let him just destroy. In my opinion, that's not a good idea, but Scoot Henderson is such a good prospect. And even though he is this good of a prospect, the Hornets and Blazers don't need him. Like, the Blazers have Dame, and unless they're going to trade him, let's face it, it's going to be very tough for him to get any minutes when they already have 2 point guards, which are Dame and Anthony Simons under contract for many, many years. With Dame with his new $60 million extension, and with Anthony with his $100 million deal, which he received last season. And honestly, he's just one of these guys who's gonna get picked of. He's the best guy available. We need to pick him, right? Like, realistically, the best case for him would be that he falls to the Magic, but the Magic are at 6th place, and I doubt that there are 4 players who get drafted before him, so he could make it there. So in my opinion, it seems pretty set that he's going to get drafted in the top 3 just based off of his talent, and I think that the teams are going to try to make it work. What's interesting with him is that they were saying that he was going to be traded for Zion, but we need to keep an eye on that, and I made a video about that yesterday. Brandon Miller. I mean, he's just like a wing, and he's going to get drafted because of that. Every team needs more wings, and that's just the reality of the NBA. He's 6'9", and honestly, I think the Blazers need him more than anybody, especially when now they're doing this weird thing where they're rebuilding, but they're also trying to give Dame a championship. I think getting a wing and a solid one at that would be the best thing possible. In my opinion, the Blazers should trade Dame and then go and get Scoot, but we'll see what happens, because honestly, Brandon Miller could get picked at number 2, number 3. It doesn't really matter, as like he's just such a body and an asset because of his position that honestly I just think he's gonna get picked probably 2nd or 3rd, just depending on what the team's thinking about. 4th, I mean, I'm gonna talk about the Thompson twins. They're both from Overtime Elite, which is a big step in the right direction. You know, opening up new ways to get in the draft and popularize basketball. Overtime has done a phenomenal job with their scouting program and the way that they run their league. I believe that now is that the results are showing. And Alman is basically like a scoring point guard. You know, he's like a high upside guy who has an extreme clutch gene. He's a great passer when it comes to like seeing the passes. And honestly, in my opinion, him and his brother are 2 of the best prospects when it comes to just purely being ready for the game. They've studied a lot, and you can tell they're very knowledgeable. Finally, at 5, we have Jarace Walker. You know, another wing, basically. And honestly, he fits perfectly for the Pistons. By the way, the 4, Amen Thompson, is going to the Rockets. I don't think that should happen. He plays like a guard, even though he has the size of a wing. And seeing another guard on the Rockets and another score-first player who gets compared to Jalen Green, it would not be good. I believe that he should be probably on the Pistons, right, or on the Magic. Finally, we have Jarace Walker. and he is a wing, 6'6", solid player. He's like a combo guard, but he's one of those guys which you're just taking because it fills a role. Wing has been the most set out role, as people would normally, when they're starting their teams, they will draft their centers and their point guards first, and then they'll figure out the rest of the position. So he looks really good for the Pistons, for the Rockets, and for these teams. And yeah, that's it. I mean, of course, there are more picks, but I believe that those are the big ones. I do want to talk. I do want to say that Anthony Black has fallen a lot off, and in my opinion, this draft is going to be interesting, and I do believe that it's going to be a great draft. It isn't getting as much hype as the other ones, but I do believe it will be one of the best drafts just because of how good and mentally ready these players are, especially the top guys in the league.